Well, good evening, VC. It's your old pal Dom seeking a thread, bringing to you the much ballyhooed and much perhaps hyped vinyl absorption. And this is going to be the update to my 2024 list of targeted records that I hope to bring home in this year. I've done quite well so far. I got 15 records here out of 24. So I definitely put the juice to these titles and really focused on these. I've done other buying for sure. I've mellowed out mostly, but honed in on these. And yeah, these are all lifetime records, you know, keepers for a lifetime. I love them. You know, these are my new kids, my additional children. No, super pleased with all of them. Happy with all the prices I paid, pretty much, and didn't go overboard to get them. Well, in some cases I did, but thanks to some of the sales I did, the reissue purge, that all helped deal with these, we'll just say. So thank you all for that. We're going to get into them in a second. I usually do 10 to 12 records in these kinds of videos, so there's going to be a little more. And yeah, I'm really hopeful. We'll see what happens with the other 9 records. I'll probably only get a couple more by the end of the year. So yeah, we're going to get into it in a second. Just going to give you a few channel updates. I am going to do another purge of reissues. I'm making my way through what I have. Not purging every reissue, but largely a lot of them are going to be gone and not really buying new ones. So I'm not sure if I'll do that as another live stream or just post a video the way I did. So that will be coming up. I'm doing another live stream about new records, new releases that I've pre-ordered that you have the opportunity to buy. I'll do another one of those. I actually have an update video, probably maybe even live stream again, of the 2023 targets that I've been able to get in 2024. An update to last year's targets. Some great ones there. I also plan to do some more artist-focused things. I have a John Fahey and Robbie Basho update to those collections. Some upgrades, a couple of new subtitles I didn't have for both of those. I'm a completist on those 2 artists. I'll do that in one video probably. As well as artist focuses on the Butch and Bajas and Whitney and Carl. I'm going to be doing that. And the Flying Nun Records update. The new records I've gotten. Original pressings from the Flying Nun label. I'm also a collector of that label. That's largely what I'll be doing in the next few months, and a lot of what I'll be doing the rest of this year. There's certainly going to be more than that. So, yeah, stay tuned to Seeking a Thread. Hit that subscribe button. I can't even bring myself to do that. Anyway, did I have anything else to say, or let's get into it? Before I tell you what we're listening, or what records I got, we're listening to the first time vinyl reissue of Temples 4, this beautiful Roy Montgomery record from the mid-90s on Cranky, issued for the first time on vinyl, like I said, on Cranky, trademark of quality. I'll hopefully talk more about this. Stunning album, beautiful. So we'll listen to some of this and then probably get into something else too. So a little bit of everything here. Avant-garde, jazz, minimal, ambient music, reggae, indie, post-punk, French space rock, French avant-garde. There's a bunch of different things here. So this first one is maybe the biggest outlier and one of the most affecting records to me I've ever heard, honestly. One that just, you wouldn't think on the surface it would capture you in this way, but this one does. And it is this Portuguese avant-garde record. Minimal, music concrete, experimental. Nuno Canavarro, Quba, Musica para 70 Serpentes. And this is the original pressing from 1988. I got this on a great price, great deal from that seller I've been talking about. He was letting this go. We made a deal, just directly, so that was awesome. What can I tell you? So, he was in a bunch of, or a couple, new wave, post-punk Portuguese groups. Were kind of his day jobs, and I guess for some reason he decided to go in this direction. And this is a highly conceptual, and as I said, deeply affecting and just sort of leveling work of avant-garde. He's using primitive sampling here, and multi-tracking, and just creating this layered, beautiful, and out there record. And it's really all Nuno Canavarro making all this music. It's sort of a very plain and nondescript sleeve. It's very, in its own way, sort of engaging in its simplicity and indicative of what the music would be. There's no real inserts to this. It's on the Romanta label, a Portuguese label. Jim O'Rourke would hear this some years later, and he would reissue this for the first time, I think, in the mid to late 90s on his own Mokai label. That would be sort of go away, and then Drag City did reissue this about 2015. Nuno Canavarro has only just this record and another solo record as a collaboration, which I also have. I'll also sort of show that in another video. But what does this really sound like? As I said, it's primitive sampling. It's kind of hard to see exactly what he's doing. It's in many ways mysterious. But it's like voices. He uses voice, which mutate and transform. Very alien sounding, but just super beautiful. I mean, there's something about the way this record unfurls that just really pulled me in. In using synthesizers and primitive sampling, he was in some ways working with current technology, but there were still a lot of limitations, and those limitations are sort of what carves out the sound and makes this record what it is. Yeah, just very mysterious in terms of how he was producing this. Really one I highly recommend you listen to. I will put in clips of all the records. So we'll move on from 1988, Quba on the Romanta label, Portuguese minimal avant-garde by Nuno Canavarro. Musica para Serpentes, 1988. Here's the label real quick. I didn't show that. Also very simple. Something completely different. These first few records don't really go with everything else, so they'll come first. Maybe one of the most beautiful sleeves I've ever seen, and one of the most beautiful layouts and packaging I've ever seen. And it's why I collect this label. I mentioned it briefly, but it's why I collect this label, and specifically the first pressings, the Takoma label. And I'm talking about this Robert Pete Williams album, Louisiana Blues. Just look at this cover. I mean, now this is rare. It's pretty rare. So it would get reissued in a different cover, also on Takoma. Sort of. There's a Buck of White album that has a similar sort of layout. I'll put an insert of the other sleeve, but this is the first pressing and the much more rare sleeve. I've had a hard time finding this. I lost out on one on auction, and of all sellers, Craig Moore posted this. And if you ever bought from Craig Moore in Portland, very conservative grader. This was listed as I think a VG record, VG Plus sleeve. I mean, this thing is stunning. Look at the font, the typeset, and it even does come with, as most Takoma records do, come with a booklet like Folkways. Look at how beautiful. This thing is like untouched. And when I saw this, and I read all these notes, when I saw how, it just floored me. And it's just like a textured paper. I don't know if the later pressings come with it, but this very first Takoma, what a lovely, I can't even take it. And it's on the very first Takoma labels, which are always the shiny black, sometimes with a deep groove, sometimes not. There's a matte black, On Takoma, those are second presses typically. Depends on the years. Some later records came out on the orange labels first. These labels stop around 68. And then you go, the matte black are typically the second pressings of these. And then later on they go to the orange, and then the gold and black. But so what is this? It's a blues record, right? John Fahey sort of discovered this guy or found him. And so he effectively produced this record. He was convicted of he's from Louisiana. He was convicted of a crime of murder, self-defense apparently. Well, he claimed it was self-defense. Born in 1914. He served for 3 years, and again insisted it was self-defense. But this is his fourth album. He had records on Prestige, Bluesville, and another one, that the Angola Prison one. I'm forgetting. I think that one might have been almost like a private label, but the notes are all by Al Wilson, or Blind Al Wilson, of Canned Heat. So he really talks a lot about in those notes about musically what Robert Pete Williams was doing, using modalities rather than just traditional blues progressions, using modal scales and a lot of minor key kind of things, minor key tonalities. So the notes are really quite fascinating, really diving into his style. But great blues, country blues singer, not protest, but country blues. Yeah, like certainly his time doing Prison had a lot to do with the material that we have here. Not widely recorded, not widely regarded, but definitely not unknown either. Robert Pete Williams, Louisiana Blues, and just, yeah, when I was, I've listened to all these records 2 or 3 times, and this one I just can't help but just stare at. And it's one of these ones that really makes me just happy to look at and have, and this is why original pressings matter so much to me. You can't get this anywhere else. Alright, next, a dub record, and I talked briefly about this one. Wasn't totally aware of it, was aware of the artist, but not really this record in particular. And I saw it at WFMU, I talked about it, I showed the pictures of it, and I was able to track down the record right at the early of January. This is Winston Riley Meditation dub with this incredibly stoned sleeve. Winston Riley, actually, if you don't know him, and you might not, he actually is quite acclaimed. He founded the group of Techniques and the Techniques label, and this is from 1977, by the way. There's different versions of the sleeve, like always with Jamaica. In Jamaican pressings, it can be tough to sort of ascertain what you have. It's on this Techniques label. It's his label, Winston Riley. He's most widely known, and it's on this Stalag. That's one of the most widely used Jamaican rhythms in history, if not the most. You'll know it when you hear it. I'm going to put it in right here. The Stalag rhythm is like I said, it's used all the time. It's probably still being used today. But he was also a famous producer. He recorded produced and recorded the Double Barrel song by David Ansel Collins. You'll probably know that one. I'll try to remember to insert the cover here. Great sleeve. I have it, but it's over there. He also helped launch the career of Buju Banton, Cuddy Rank, some of the dancehall guys, even Sister Nancy, who coincidentally just visited Ithaca. But this is a sterling, top-notch dub LP. The greatest shape. It has that bit of that hazing that affects some of the reggae records. So there's some noise to it, but it plays deep, and I'm very happy with it. Not to mention this beautiful cover. So I'll play a track from this, Winston Riley's Meditation dub. You only know it's Winston Riley by just producer. And they're on Volume 2 and Volume 3 of this, which I'm hoping to find. So, there you go. Go into sort of the jazz and avant-garde, particularly French jazz avant-garde. And this next one has a fun story. Totally random. This is the least expensive record in what I showed. The Robert Pete Williams is actually cheaper than you might think, but not cheap. But anyway, this one is Jacques Thollot, Resurgence 1977, his third solo LP. And this one has never been reissued, only one pressing, only this French pressing. I was ready to pull the trigger at some point. I was going to do it from a seller in Europe, probably France, for this and something else, maybe a third record that were all on my want list. It was something like 50 or 60 euro. And lo and behold, what was it? May, I guess it would have been, whenever the Austin Record Show was happening. Rob, the Waxed, was having a pre-stream about their trip. And it was all about sort of what they were expecting. It was sort of in anticipation of the Austin Record Show. And he was on the stream with... Actually, I think I was watching it, not even watching it live. I was watching it like a day later. He was on the stream with Jim, Record Collector News. And in just a quick aside, they were talking about going to some shop in LA because they had met up. And Jim was like, well, said something to the effect of, yeah, it was all really good stuff except for that one jazz record you told me to get and I got, and I shouldn't have listened to you or something like that. And Rob was saying like, oh, what record was it? And I was paying attention, but I was doing other things like I'm usually doing when I do this stuff. And I looked over, I happened to look just when he showed it, and Rob was like, what record are you talking about? I don't remember. And Jim's like, that French record, and he just briefly holds this up, and he's like, this one. And I look, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm looking for that. It's Jacques Thollot. And that was it. He was like, oh, this one, I don't know why I listened to you get this. And he puts it down and they move on. If I hadn't looked, or if I just briefly missed that part, I would have never seen this. Yes, I contacted Jim, and actually I got the Record Collector News coming to the house now. Contacted Jim and said, hey, it sounds like you didn't like that record, sell it to me. And sure enough, he did. He sold it to me for the price he paid for it, $30. And here it is. He sent it out. See, that's why I like identifying all these titles, and that's another thing. Like, sometimes there's some idea that maybe you shouldn't call out the records you're most hunting for. I have plenty of records I'm hunting for that I'm not talking about, but by doing that, I feel like I'm putting out into the world, and there's another example here, that I'm looking for these things, and that, yes, this one just happened to be totally random and by chance, but who would have thunk that would have happened? Anyway, that's how I ended up with this. So thank you, Jim, thank you, Rob, for having that and making the comment, whatever, and thank you for telling Jim to get it. But, what is this? It's on the Musica label, 1977, French only, as I said. We have Nana Vasconcelos on this, playing his percussion. But Jacques Thollot is a percussionist drummer, by the way. He was in his earliest days playing as a whiz kid percussionist drummer in France. He did plenty of work with Jeff Gilson for the Palm label. And he would go on to do other things, get into a bit of a prog territory, but playing jazz since his teens. Now this one, we also have Francois Janot, tenor saxophone, soprano, and flute. Siegfried Kessler, piano. Fender Rhodes, I guess it would be, clavinet, flute, and percussion as well. Beb Guerin, double bass, and the vocalist of Frédéric Gickenbach. So there's some jazz vocals on this, produced by Alain Boucanou. There's Mr. Thollot here. So it's a bit of a mixed bag of different kinds of things. It's not quite like his classic on Futura, the Giraffe album, but this one has a bit of free moments and just some out there jazz vocals and stuff like that. So an interesting record. He would do a few different solo records. He was in the Perception band that was also on Futura, I believe it was, with Siegfried Kessler and Didier Lavallee. But I just found this one fascinating, and I was just intrigued by the cover, and just, never been reissued. The players, none of Vasconcelos, and sure enough, it turned up in the weirdest of ways. Third solo album by Jacques Thollot, 1977, Resurgence. And here's the label. I don't know why I'm showing the labels late here. Musica. I'm going to probably play another record later, because this is a long video. Right, another avant-garde French record, and another drummer, Daniel Humair, Drumo Vocalo. This is from 1971, also no reissue. There's an Italian press with a different cover. Got this one randomly doing an internet search. So with all these records, I don't just put them into a Discogs want list. I put them in eBay search terms, save search terms. I do general internet searches, Instagram searches. This one popped up from a Japanese seller that does have a Discogs page, but also has a web store called Dessiné Shop. Okay? It's not... And some of the stuff on the Dessiné Shop are on the Dessiné Shop Discogs, but this one was not. It was only... via their website, and it's all just, they're just offering a bunch of different kind of rare groove, avant-garde, Latin, a lot of French music, and this was there for a great price from Japan. Was actually able to order it from Japan, pretty reasonable prices, shipping I should say, and the great price. I think it ended up being about $60 for this. This is great, but in any case, it is Daniel Humair doing a radio or library record, drums for screen, on the IML label. That's internet. What is it? There's a few different records. International Music label, it's just called. There's another record on this I hope to get. I know Stunty's on this one. And Alex pointed out, I was showing him a picture of this. We thought this might have been signed by Humair, which it's actually printed on there. They all have that, but he's Swiss, still alive at age 85. And just one of the great drummers, bar none, really. This is a tour de force of percussion, affected drumming, with effects and vocal effects. The effects were done by Claude Martineau, I believe it was. Yeah, there's tons of reverb all over the drums. It's just bonkers. I love this album, and it is kind of a library record, but it's just kind of someone showing, sort of flexing their muscles in a way. I guess a lot of what I'm doing is showing these records as flexing, which I'm sorry about that, but I'm not really sorry. I love these records. Anyway, Humair is known for, he's worked with so many different people. He did that Apocalypse record with Jean-Charles Capon, which I absolutely love. The Baroque Jazz Quartet, that's a well-known record, or well-known sort of group. And he's played with all kinds of great American greats like Chet Baker, Dexter Gordon, Rahsaan Roland Kirk, Eric Dolphy. Also a talented painter. So if you just see if you can stream this one, like I said, I'll put in a sample. It's all percussion, but it's just done in this magical way. It's just very engaging, creating a world unto itself. With just lots of effects and trippiness to it. Great sleeve design too. 1971, Drumo Vocalo, Daniel Humair. Here's the labels. There it is. All short tracks. Speaking of the devil, Jean-Charles Capon worked with worked with this Madagascar drummer in let's see, what year is it? 1970. This came out in 77, but I believe it was recorded a few years earlier. Anyway, I'm starting to grow my palm collection. I've got a couple now, including this one. Jean-Jacques Capon with Serge Rahoerson, Philippe Maté, and then the American Butch Morris. This is the way this one goes, by the way. This was, of course, recorded and put together by Jacques. Here's the, I know everyone likes to see the palm label. Here we have it. There is a Souffle Continue reissue of this one. This one is not the upper echelon of palm in terms of prices. You can get this one okay, but I was staring at the one copy that was available. This was from Discogs in Europe. I had to remove this price tag, or a little sticker here, by the way. I don't know if I'm going to be able to fix that up, maybe. But I was staring at this copy, and I finally decided to pull the trigger. It was sitting there for months. It wasn't a bit of the higher end. Everything I've gotten it around median. I kind of wait out for that. This one I was a little over this, and kind of closer to the highest paid sold for. But I just was like, I don't know when it's coming. It's on my list. I want it. And ultimately, I'm fine with the price. I think the shipping was fair. But the story of this is Gilson actually, he connected Capon and Rahoerson, was on the Malagasy album. Also, this is Serge. I think his father is George, but he's also a reed player, saxophonist, but was enlisted to be the percussionist on this one. This was actually recorded between just the two of them, and then Butch Morris and Philippe Maté was overdubbed later. It's just how it worked out. It's great though. You know Capon is on this. His double bass playing is very much, you know it when you hear it, kind of thing. Signature sound. Just so rhythmic and, well, obviously rhythmic, but just fat and round. Just very thick. And just so beautiful, I think. Like Texier, very much a signature sound. But yeah, if you love the Malagasy record, I think you need to probably obviously follow up with this one. It is, obviously it's put together, it's a bit of a hodgepodge, but it all works out well. Butch Morris, trumpeter, not sure how he got involved in this other than he must have had the ear of Gilson. And ended up here. Some cool records by Butch Morris, actually, who's definitely worked in Europe quite a bit with the Avant-garde. So he's on this one. There it is. Hoping to find more palms, but happy to have that one. Another avant-garde record, this one American. This one has been discussed in the VC, but I first found out about it from the M Records label, Japanese reissue label. In 2009, I got it when this reissue came out because I saw the cover. How do you not buy that record when you see the cover? Now, I've since shifted the reissue to Dave, local bandography, bought the reissue. This one, it's kind of a long story. A copy came up on Discogs listed as a VG copy. The seller was being very cagey about what the actual condition was, because I wrote to them about pictures, asked for more condition notes, because it was just VG. I don't think there was anything. And they started to tell me oh, that's excellent, that's a VG++. I'm like, well, why is it graded VG then? And he said the sleeve was really nice. And I'm like, well, I kept trying to challenge them, why did you grade it VG? I decided the price was great. It was good. Not great. It was good though. It was good. I was like, I'm not confident I'm going to find it for cheaper than this. And I decided to just try it. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go for it. And thankfully, it worked out, and it really was undergraded. I think he was right. It was better than he graded it for. I don't know why he listed it as a VG, and it sat for a few weeks. Cover's in great shape. So there's a sticker here. Here. I'm going to try to get that off. I think I can get it off, but it actually doesn't bother me too much. This is a private press. Essentially, it's on the Flowchart label out of Teaneck, New Jersey. I'll show you the label and we'll talk about what this is if you don't know. As I said, M Records reissued it in 2009. Look at that beautiful label, Flowchart. So Roland P. Young was very much a forward-thinking jazz player. He had this group called Infinite Sound in the early 70s. One of the early free groups of the time. Infinite Sound, what was the name of the record? I used to have it. I decided to sell that. I actually traded that at Hudson Valley Vinyl to Chris, who didn't have it, so I was able to get some good trade for it. So he was in that group, Infinite Sound, which came out on the 1750 Arch label. And this is a solo record, another one of these solo records where the artist is just creating the perfect storm of all these different instruments, overdubbing, and just showing what they can do with themselves. Now he's a multiple, essentially a reed player. You have soprano sax, clarinet, bass clarinet, electronic bass clarinet, plus different percussion chimes, bells, and the kalimba. The first track is just beautiful kalimba on it, and all of it is affected with atmosphere and everything. This does come with like a little press, a little one sheet too, which talks about Roland P. Young and his history. Teaneck, New Jersey, 1980. It's a stunning record. It matches the cover. Definitely out there, definitely avant-garde, but he mixes ethnographic sounds, he mixes spiritual jazz, avant-garde, ambient. It's just beautiful. It's hard to call this a jazz record per se. It's sort of an atmospheric, experimental album with jazz influence, and yeah, that kalimba in there really brings the ethno vibe out. The Velvet Dream track is just beautiful, the last track. But he is a multi-instrumentalist. Just really creates a world here. Isophonic Boogie Woogie. I don't think I said the title if you didn't read it. What a great title. He would do a couple other things after this. He mainly was like a sleeve designer. He designed a bunch of different sleeves for some major labels, and recorded more music in the recent years too. So there's some voice on this. That's right. Yeah, I wrote down. Some voice on this, but it's all Roland P. Young. Isophonic Boogie Woogie. So happy to have this in the collection. Sort of straight avant-garde jazz. I've been trying to collect Doug Hammond, and I was happy to grab this one. Again, I'll link below to my list that I made at the first of the year, so you can see all these targets. But how am I doing on time? Okay, this is Folks. Doug Hammond also from 1980, a lot of 1980, on his own Idabib label. I grabbed Eclipse from Billy's at the WFM Record Fest, soon on my list after. There's one more Doug Hammond record I'm hoping to grab. This one is notable for introducing Munir Abdul Fattah, who's playing double bass on this and doing a hell of a job. We also have Byard Lancaster, Cecil McBee, two big names, Marvin Blackman, Bessie Carter, Karen Joseph, I believe, doing some vocals. Yeah, there's some vocals on this. Hammond, the drummer, of course, he had that Tribe record in 1975. Reflections in the Sea, whatever it's called. That one's an incredibly rare album. This is nothing close to that in terms of price. But Detroit and then New York City based, Hammond had a big address book, we'll say that. He knew a lot of people. He started this Idabib label, I think mainly was doing this in New York. It's very varied. There's jazz vocal, more, like I said, jazz vocal on this, avant-garde. Like I said, Fatah on the double bass is great. Byron Lancaster, anything with Byron Lancaster you need to hear. But he gives space to the players. He lets everything kind of breathe on its own, and that's the strength, I think, of Doug Hammond. Cecil McBee, you can hear him on here. He stands out really well. But you get a good breakdown of what everyone's doing on the back here. Again, it's on the Idabib label. There's only a few records on that label. It's mainly Doug Hammond stuff. Folks. Another wonderful sleeve. Here's that Idabib label. Idabib. There it is. Doug Hammond, Idabib. Or Folks, I should say. Got this in. This is never before released on vinyl. Lee Underwood, California Psy on the Drag City label, featuring Steve Roach, I believe. Yeah, from 1988. Just came out on Drag City. More to dig into with this, but a nice sort of surf, a little bit light on the light side, but beautiful acoustic folk music, mainly instrumental, kind of primitive Americana mixed in with a bit of new age and yeah, Steve Roach. So we're gonna listen to that. All right, next, another bassist. A lot of bassists in this pile of heavy targets. An artist I've been trying to collect too. I do have another record from them. We'll show another time. David Wertman, Earthly Delights, his second album from 1978. Great player. He had a record prior to this, Cara Suite, which I do have as well. Steve Reed being featured in that. He's definitely connected to Steve Reed. There he is. He died of cancer, unfortunately, in about 10-15 years ago, at the age of 61. So he's no longer with us, but did do a fair amount of recording. Another one who's like Capon, so he's got that really wide, really rich bass sound. And he's playing on here with a lot of unknowns, but there's a little bit of synthesizer on here from John Zeman. It's funny, I don't really recall hearing it, but it's in there. John Sprague Jr., flutes, percussion, Jay Conway drums, Greg Wall baritone, sax, David Swerdlove alto soprano saxophone, and John Hagen. I've heard about him. Tenor and soprano as well. Wertman, the bassist. Earthly Delights. The label is founded by Marion Brown. There's a few other kind of key records on that label too, such as a Sun Ra record, plus Micaiah McCraven's father's record, Stephen McCraven. Pretty cool record. It was on this label. Anyway, Wertman is a player of super high end, we'll say that. This is sort of a free jazz record for sure. But not totally going to blow your mind, or not totally going to scare you away, I should say. I kind of talk about that a bunch, like these free records that are a little more accessible. I find this to be that way. It's definitely free though. We got 4 tracks on here, including a John Coltrane track, which was my favorite on here. Oh John, Love Train. This is David Wertman's Sun Ensemble. Here's the label, and we're going to keep it moving. There's more Wertman to be showed on another video. He appears and turns up on a few records that are a little easier to get. Hopefully I'll talk about those at some point. Not a ton of recordings, but he definitely turns up in a few places. So yeah, that is from 1978, and it is recorded live, I believe. At least you can hear an audience applauding at some point. So, David Wertman. These next two are French prog records, or progressive, or psych records. This one's really more of a psych record, space rock record. And this one is every bit as good as the hype gives it. I think it's even better than that. Another record, I was actually looking for this for a while, well before this year. And it is the Pole record. Both of these next two records are on Pole. But it is by Besombes-Rizet. Philippe and Rizet, what's his name? This is the original pressing on the Pole label. A lot of people thought the name of the band was Pole, but there is a Pole band. This is not it. It's confusing in a way. This is signed on the inner sleeve. I haven't figured out who this is yet. I don't know if it's one of the band members or someone in it, but there's a huge collective of musicians on this, as you can see. But this is a must-have French avant prog space rock psych album. Besombes has another record on Pole, which I've shown. But yeah, it's a heavy-duty synth record with guitar as well, with both of them employing synths. I love this back cover of them driving with the cloud over them too. This the Pole labels are really cool. I think this sounds good. A lot of the times Pole label stuff doesn't sound great. This one sounds great, and it's a double album. The reissues that have come out since are not doubles. They're actually not, doesn't have all the tracks, I think. Is that right? Nice label there. This one is out in space. There's some long-winded, blown out sort of experiments on this. Heavy flutes, heavy atmosphere. I love the flute. A lot of texture, very deep listen, and this beautiful sleeve. Yeah, the side A is epic, which would be Hot Pression and Evelise, and then side B to Armature Double, 18 minutes long, beautiful stuff. Side C you get Lundi Matin, Monday Morning, Montelimar, Rock Montauban, and Synthi Sotil, 21 minutes on the D side. But I'll tell you a little bit about what they're playing. Philippe Besombes, clavier, synthesizer, accordion, guitar, and singing. François Legros, feminine voices and sounds. Alain Petit, saxophone. Jean-Louis Rizet, clavier, synth, flute, trumpets, guitars, and singing. And Jacques van der Ellestraat, battery or drums. It talks about all the synthesizers on here. I won't go through them all, but you can see perhaps right there. I mean, this one's more than anything, including the Nuno Canavarro. You got to put this one on and let it soak you in. On the Pole label, this one's epic, out there. This is far out Psych, really. Psych heads will be all over this, I think. So, Besombes-Rizet. It's really self-titled. It's the Pole is a label. In this case, sometimes it's the artist. It's very confusing, but a double album. From I didn't tell you the year, 1975, right? Yeah. Double album. Second album, and confoundingly out there, Mahogany Brain, Smooth Sick Lights, yes, that name, by Michel Bolteau. recorded in 1972, but not released until 1976, or is it 75? I couldn't quite find out why. 1976, why it took 4 years for it to come out. But this is like proto no wave. It's broken, fragmented guitar. It's drumming that's all over the place. It's experimental, or maybe unhinged, you might say. It sounds like they don't know what they're doing. It follows an equally beguiling record, but way more more like the Besombes-Rizet record, the black cover, the Mahogany Brain. But very much avant-garde, explorative. It's almost no wave. It definitely sounds like more like Cro-Magnon or like Red Crayola at times, or something that would be on ESP disc. Here's the pull label on this one. And something about this and just how out it sounded, how ahead of its time in a way, sucked me in. A lot of guitar on here, vocals, but recorded by Gilson, again produced by Paul Putti. Got this from France. Only one copy, was sitting around for a little while, but the price was right. So it felt right. We went for it. The lead guitarist, where is he? Patrick Jaffroy. He would later be in James Chance, so there was a connection. He somehow got tied up with that, so there's a connection to the no wave movement. Their first LP was on Futura. This one again on Pole. This is on the Nurse with Wound list, and apparently the Tapioca reissue does not sound very good, but this is a lo-fi record anyway, so I don't think it's a big deal. But yeah, if you like Cro-Magnon, anything on the ESP disc, out guitar music, this is for you. Mahogany Brain, 1976, recorded in 72 by Jeff Gilson. Musica Lights. Okay, this next one is probably the one I'm most proud of or most happy to have. And I still can't believe I have it. Sold at WFMU for a good price, but with a bit of a burnt cover. I put it down, had a chance to buy it, and I decided I was going to do it, and then I went back and it was gone. But I'm happy to have this. This one cost me a little bit more than that price, but I put not a low ball offer, but a heavy discount on what the offer was, and it was coming from Greece, and they accepted it. And boy, am I happy with it. Original pressing of Red Hash by Gary Higgins on the Nufus Moon label. 1973, a Connecticut, essentially psych rocker who was in this band called Random Concept. And they slowly, kind of petered out at the tail end of the 60s. Simon Cox from the Silver Apples was in that band, but he started getting into more folky sounds and recording other demos. Here's the original labels. Of course, I've moved the reissue along, but I kept the 7-inch, which I kind of want to do more of when I'm selling the reissues. I think I might want to keep inserts and bonus things with the original pressing. It's going to bother some people, but I'll sell it for way less. But what a beautiful cover. The condition is wonderful. The record's near mint, so I couldn't be happier with this. It does even have the lyric insert. So this is like top-notch copy. And like I said, it was more than the copy at FMU, not too much more, but this condition is blowing me away. And this record is a stunning folk album. It's considered an acid psych folk album. We're gonna entry this as I'm gonna break this out as an Acid Archives video. He was sentenced to 2 years in prison for weed possession. I guess they were trying to catch someone else, and they ended up with him and his buddy who was in the band with him. And Gary Higgins was sent to prison, and before he went to prison he was able to make this album. And his buddy that he was who was going to serve time as well with him, helped him put this out while he was in prison. So they made 2,500 copies of this, pressed once Gary Higgins was incarcerated. But it is just beautiful songwriting. There's such cool arrangements on this. It's mainly folk, acid folk, out there, sort of like downer folk, stuff like that. But we list what everyone's helping with here. I believe, the band members are listed here. Terry Fenton, organ, piano. Dave Beaujean, electric bass. Jake Bell, also guitar and vocal. Paul Tierney, flute, mandolin, vocal. And Maureen Wells, cello and vocal. So, beautiful folk arrangements. Now, I did keep, here is the bonus, the 7-inch that came with the reissue, which has a 1975 track and a 1980 track. I decided to keep that. Late Great Sperm Whale and Don't You Know. So I'm keeping out the original issue. And it's just one of my all-time favorite records. I couldn't be happier to have this condition. He would get discovered in the early 2000s by a Drag City staffer who, through Ben Chastney of Six Organs of Admittance, helped track down Gary Higgins, and they reissued this. And Gary Higgins even, they did showcases. He got to perform again, and he started to get all this attention and acclaim, and the reissues were sold out, and so a lot of notoriety has come to Red Hash, and that was his nickname, by the way, in prison. All through that Ben Chastney and Drag City connection. So this record has become quite well known, I think. So the price of these originals has only gone up, but I couldn't be happier with this. And yeah, Ben Chastney really helped bring Gary Higgins some much needed revenue, and even other music has come out from Gary Higgins. So super happy to have Red Hash, 1973 on Nufus Moon. But let's see what the Acid Archives has to say about it. This is a top tier. Here we go. Gary Higgins, Connecticut. I think it's from Sharon, Connecticut. Nufus Moon, 1973. Also a CD on Flashback, CD Drag City. Rarity of 1 to 2, and it does say 2,500 pieces. This is by Patrick Lundborg. Highly enjoyable, small-town hippie folk rock with a professional sound, good vocals, and songs full of hooks and strong melodies. A dreamy melancholy dominates, but the sharp arrangements and elaborate production keeps it from ever drifting off. Lyrics deal with dope and being in prison, which is a true story and probably what kept him off major labels. Higgins received a severe 2-year, 9-month sentence for possession of weed, but had time to record this album shortly before going to jail. Red Hash is a nickname he acquired when being in custody. This underrated LP is a favorite of mine and better than almost all the overpriced items in this genre. Personal hit picks include Stable of Spuds and the closing Looking for June, but the LP is remarkably strong across the board. Do not miss, some copies came with promo sheets and newspaper clippings about Higgins' trial from the Acid Archives. This will now exist as a separate video in the Acid Archives Diaries thread, so you're seeing it now first. But anyway, that is Gary Higgins' Red Hash from 1973, Acid Archives Diaries. You saw the whole video about this record, so I'll spare you that story. SF Sorrow, the mono copy on Columbia again. So we'll go right to the music. 1968, known as the first song cycle, the first sort of concept record before Tommy. It was the Pretty Things, sort of the end of their career in a way. They would release another great album called Parachute after this, but SF Sorrow, first rock opera. Fourth album, main character is sort of a coming-of-age story of a psychedelic sort of mind-blowing situation, getting disillusioned and ultimately sort of fading into obscurity. I don't know what happens to him, but it definitely follows along those lines with just some great production work. Psychedelic production, great backing vocals, lots of atmosphere. Yeah, I mean, the songs are what really sets this record apart. I think Baron Saturday is a favorite, as well as what's my other favorite? I think Old Man Going. Yeah, it ends with a real quick, nice little lovely song called Loneliest Person. I See You has that great sort of vocal chorus. Yeah, heavy. This is a psychedelic essential with just, again, incredibly beautiful sleeve notes, or rock design, or sleeve design, which was all done by Phil May of the band. Norman Smith produced this, well-known UK producer, of course, worked with Pink Floyd #1, and Twink filled in on drums, who would join the Pretty Things on this record when Skip Allen departed. But it's so much experimentation, but a psych pop sort of classic, you know. Yeah, never performed live either. It was delayed too. I think this would have come out in mid-68. It ended up coming out in December of 68, which might have hurt the production or might have hurt the release of this record. But they never really did perform it. I think there's some mimed video of them doing this. But in the late 90s, they would get together and make this record again, and it, of course, has seen subsequent reissues and Celebration. And yeah, that mono press is nice. Does what mono records do. Punches you in the stomach. On that EMI Columbia label. Of course, it came out here in the US on Rare Earth. I don't know, I've heard those pressings are not good. I've never owned it. I've never wanted to own that. I've shown you the stereo Edsel copy I have from the UK. I don't like the sleeve as much. I just, it's all about the sleeve to me. I mean, the music is what it's all about, but this sleeve, you need that. So, there it is. Phil May, Wally Allen, Dick Taylor, John Povey, and Twink. Produced by Norman Smith. Two more. I bought this record sealed, so as I talk about, I'm going to side by side me opening this Windy and Call record, the last one I needed in terms of the full lengths. I have almost all of the other stuff too. This is Depths, 1998, their first for Cranky. And yeah, this is Windy mainly doing the guitar on this. Usually it's Carl Holtgren, but if you don't know Windy and Carl, like I said, I'm going to do a whole feature on them. This is ambient drone, but done with instruments, done with guitars and not synths. Vocal and bass, of course, too. But yeah, I just think they were making some of the most engaging, beautiful, kaleidoscopic. I wouldn't say kaleidoscopic. This is drone more than sort of like far out sounding, but it is immersive. It'll suck you in. Winnie and Carl are just two great humans, and I think they're working on new music and hopefully a tour. But they had the Stormy Records store, which had to close during the pandemic. They have the label Blue Flea, which some of the records came out on. So they're still going. They're still around. There's a lot of records. They just reissued Consciousness, Cranky, or just repressed it. This has not been repressed. Hopefully they'll get to this one next, because this has gotten rather expensive. I made a great low offer on this, and the seller took it. So yeah, if you like ambient music, minimalism, guitar, like sort of like a post shoegaze drone, this is what you want. Windy has great vocals. They get compared to Eno a lot, but they have nothing to do with Eno, really. I don't know why. They like Eno, but they were not listening to Brian Eno ever. So that's sort of strange, but a beautiful cosmic indie drone, and yeah, ambient music by Windy and Carl. Depths from 1998. Number 15. I want to thank Ben Romley in New Zealand for turning me onto a seller in New Zealand on Facebook Marketplace who was only selling in New Zealand. Ben procured this for me, and it's one of the 2 EPs by this great post-punk New Zealand Flying Nun band, Scorched Earth Policy, SEP, Going Through a Hole in Your Head, their second EP, recorded at Tandem Studio in 1985. Only 2 EPs and then a compilation, which I'll probably sell, will probably be on one of my streams to sell. Here's the custom Flying Nun labels. This band is amazing. The song Green Cigar is one of the catchiest songs of all time, and there's a few catchy ones on this one. Turn Your Eyes Away, I think it is. And Since the Accident. It's this sort of a Joy Division feel in tone and sort of tenor, but they can write hooks, you know, so it's pretty special. It's pretty incredible, this record. Thank you, Ben, for helping procure this. When I covered the Victor Dimisic band, this was the other record that he was able to get for me. But yeah, second EP, members from the Victor Dimisic band, as well as the Pin Group. Drummer Peter Stapleton was in a lot of those bands, as well as the Terminals. He's in this band too. It's kind of like there's violin on this, which sort of gives it a VU meets the clean, meets Joy Division sound. I love the organ on this band. This band has some of the best organ sounds you can get. Here's the insert from 1985, one of 2 EPs. They were sort of done. They played. They were not a Dunedin band. I believe they were Christchurch, so they were not of that Dunedin sound. But they were definitely more of a noise punk or punk group, post-punk. This video's gone long, so we're going to end it, I think, right now. Scorched Earth Policy, Going Through a Hole in Your Head, from my 2024 targeted list. Wow, thank you. Hope you enjoyed all of that. Stay tuned for all those things I discussed, and we'll see where I'm at the end of the year. See if I can get all 24. Thanks for sticking with me, bearing with me, seeking a thread. Vinyl Absorption. I'm going on vacation now to the Adirondack Mountains. Maybe a video from there. We'll see you. All right, take care.